All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most foundational frameworks in all of business strategy, the 4 Ps of marketing. Honestly, if you're serious about building a successful brand, you absolutely have to master this model.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll cover the core model itself. Then we'll dive deep into each of the 4 pillars. And finally, we'll get into the really practical stuff, how to actually apply it, and just as important, what common mistakes you need to avoid.
So, what are the 4 Ps, really? And you might be wondering, why have they stuck around as a cornerstone of marketing for like over 60 years? Let's find out. Okay, so at its core, the 4 Ps are the essential, the controllable ingredients a company gets to play with to build its value proposition. Think of them as the levers a manager can pull to get a specific reaction from the market. This whole framework was actually coined way back in 1960 by Jerome McCarthy. And believe it or not, it's still pretty much the gold standard for managerial marketing. It gives you a really clear, inside-out way to look at the marketplace.
All right, let's jump into our first 2 pillars, which are product and price. This is really where the magic starts, defining what you're actually offering and, crucially, how you're going to capture its value.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the product. And look, it's way more than just a physical thing you can hold. It could be a service, an idea, even an experience. The most critical insight here, the thing you have to get right, is that it must be designed to solve a specific, unmet need or want that your customer has. Because a product is so much more than just its basic function, right? You've got design and features. That's the stuff that creates the wow factor. Then there's branding, which gives it a real identity in the customer's mind. Packaging is huge, too. It protects the product, but also gives it a competitive edge on the shelf. And finally, you have all those supporting elements, like warranties and customer support. That's what builds long-term trust and just makes the whole buying process smoother.
Next up, we've got price. Now, this one is unique. It's the only P that directly brings money into the business. It's basically the mechanism of exchange, right? It represents the value a customer is willing to part with to get the value your product provides. And pricing. Man, it's a science in itself. Strategic pricing is all about finding that perfect sweet spot between making a profit and what a customer is actually willing to pay. And honestly, it's often way better to use value-based pricing, where you peg the price to its perceived worth, instead of just tacking on a markup. Of course, you also have tactical tools at your disposal, like discounts and rebates. But here's something a lot of people forget: the psychological costs. We're talking about the time, the effort, and even the guilt a consumer might feel. Believe it or not, these are all part of the price they pay. Okay, so we've got our product, and we know its price. Now what? Well, how do we get it to our customers, and how do we tell them it even exists? This brings us to the next 2 Ps, place and promotion. So place is all about distribution, and this is the key word here, accessibility. The goal is super simple. Make it incredibly convenient for your target customer to find and buy your product. I mean, you could have the greatest product in the world, but if it's a pain to find, it just won't sell. Just to illustrate this, think about 2 completely opposite approaches. On one hand, you've got intensive placement. Think about something like toothpaste. It's available in pretty much any store you walk into. Then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have exclusive distribution. This is for luxury goods, where scarcity and selling through only a few select retailers actually enhances the brand's value. See, your choice of place sends a really powerful message about your brand. And last but not least, we have promotion. This covers all the activities you use to communicate your product's value and, persuade your audience to take that next step. At the end of the day, it's about telling your story. Now, the promotional mix includes all the classic tools you've heard of: advertising, PR, sales promotions, even personal selling. But what's absolutely critical to understand in today's world is the big shift away from just one-way persuasion. Modern promotion is all about a 2-way dialogue. It's about using channels like social media to build a genuine relationship with the customer. Okay, so knowing the 4 Ps is one thing, but actually applying them effectively, well, that's what separates the truly successful brands from all the rest. So let's look at how to put this theory into practice and, maybe more importantly, what major pitfalls to avoid. This matrix here is a really powerful framework for getting things done. For each P, it connects the strategic driver to a key question you should be asking, and then a resulting action. So for product, you're asking about that wow factor, so you can embed unique attributes. For price, you need to find out the maximum price before you lose customers, so you can use anchoring effectively. For place, you're figuring out where your ideal customer spends their time, so you can build out an omnichannel strategy.
And for promotion, you're trying to find that one single word you can own in their mind, which lets you deploy powerful narrative marketing.
So if you want to apply this framework the right way, there are 4 key steps to follow. First, you have to scan the external environment using tools like SWOT or pestle analysis. Second, and this is huge, you have to integrate all 4 Ps so they create a coherent brand image. Third, be ready to adapt your mix as your product moves through its life cycle. And fourth, always lead with a market orientation. That means starting with research to know what customers want before you even start building.
All right, now let's talk about what not to do. First, avoid inside-out myopia. That's when you just build what you're good at, not what people will actually buy. It's a classic trap. Also, be careful not to classify tactics in multiple categories. It just creates confusion. Another big one, don't apply the rules for physical products to intangible services. They're different beasts. And most importantly, avoid focusing only on having a better product.
And that last point is captured perfectly in this quote from Al Ries and Jack Trout. They said, "Marketing is a battle of perceptions, not products." It's so true. It's not about being objectively the best. It's about being perceived as the best. Or even better, being the first to own a specific position in the customer's mind.
Okay, theory is one thing, but how does this stuff play out in the real world? Let's take a look at how some really dominant brands put the 4 Ps into action.
Let's take Gatorade. They command a staggering 67.7% of the market. I mean, that's just incredible. So how did they do it? Through a masterful understanding of their product. They've constantly evolved it over decades, repositioning it from just a sports drink to a performance quencher for basically all ages. They perfectly align their product with the changing needs of their target market. And here's a really cool forward-looking example from agribusiness. Farmers are using all 4 Ps to escape what's called the commodity trap. So for product, they're adding things like blockchain for traceability. For place, they're using direct digital marketplaces to cut out the middleman. And for promotion, they're telling these compelling farm-to-fork stories. And the result of all this, they can command a premium price. It's a perfectly integrated strategy. And all of this really brings us back to the timeless wisdom of Peter Drucker, who said, "The aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well, the product or service fits him and sells itself." That's it, right there. When the 4 Ps are perfectly executed, that need for a hard sell just disappears. The product becomes its only best advocate. And that, my friends, is the ultimate goal of marketing.